The film opens with the sound of train tracks. It's the year 1968. A couple, Aris and Paul, are seen travelling along those very tracks. Paul surprises Aris by taking her to the newly opened Sky View restaurant perched high above the city. Aris is overjoyed. As they explore the area, Aris spots a mischievous little boy playing nearby. The couple gets a photo clicked downstairs and then takes the lift up to the main dining area. They're asked to wait for a table and notice something unusual. The chef's kitchen is right in the centre of the restaurant, fully visible to everyone. Looking down from the height, Aris gently pins a rose on Paul's suit, but the thorn pricks him and blood begins to drip. Aris suddenly feels uneasy. She excuses herself to the restroom where she feels nauseous. A singer named Maria, who has brought her young son along, notices Aris and immediately guesses she's pregnant. Aris shyly admits that her boyfriend Paul is loving and supportive, and she's sure he'll accept the baby. Maria is genuinely happy for her. Soon after, Paul takes Aris to the upper deck of the restaurant, where the same playful boy appears again. Right then, Paul gets down on one knee and proposes. Aris, overwhelmed, reveals that she is pregnant. Paul is thrilled and puts a ring on her finger. They are now officially engaged. But just then, Aris sees the strange boy throw a coin from the top floor. Oddly, the coin gets sucked back in by an air vent and gets stuck in a fan. The couple then joins the crowd dancing below. The intense dancing begins to affect the building's structure. The steel beams supporting the floor start to crack under the pressure. At the same time, the coin dislodges from the fan and starts spinning wildly through the air. Upstairs, the glass floor begins to crack as people jump in excitement. Aris suddenly senses danger, but it's too late. The glass shatters. Many people fall to their deaths, including Paul, who was hanging on for his life, until he too falls and dies. Just then, a huge explosion rocked the restaurant's kitchen, starting a massive fire. Maria, the singer, was caught in the flames and burned to death. Chaos broke out. People began rushing down the stairs, but the staircase collapsed and many fell to their deaths. Aris ran towards the elevator, but it was already overcrowded. One man got crushed between the doors, and others fell as the lift gave way. Aris turned and ran in the opposite direction. Suddenly, the floor beneath her cracked open. People were now hanging on to shattered glass panels. Above them, a piano stood dangerously balanced. The same coin, the one thrown by the strange boy, landed on the piano. That slight shift in weight caused the piano to fall, shattering the glass below and killing many more. In the middle of the chaos, Aris spotted Maria's son. Risking her life, she saved him. The entire place was falling apart. Aris clung tightly to the ring Paul had given her, the symbol of their love, which somehow helped her survive for a moment, but the sharp edges of the ring cut into her hand. She and the boy lost grip, and both fell to their deaths. Suddenly, a scream. It was Stephanie, a young girl, waking up from the horrifying nightmare in the middle of her classroom. That night, she wakes up screaming from another dream. We meet her roommate, Val, who tries to calm her. A few days later, Stephanie returns to her family home where she reunites with her father, Marty, and little brother, Charlie. Stephanie decides to visit her uncle's house nearby along with Charlie, hoping to understand her dreams. She's been seeing a woman, Aris, in all of them. A woman who, she later learns, was her grandmother. At her Uncle Howard's house, she meets her cousins, Eric, Julia, and Bobby, all excited to see her. When Stephanie finally speaks to Howard, she asks about her grandmother Aris. But Howard gets angry and says, "Your grandmother went crazy after your grandfather Paul died. She abandoned all of us and disappeared. That's why your mother, Darlene, also left us." Stephanie is heartbroken, but still wants answers. Her aunt, Blenda, tells her about some letters Aris had left behind. She says Aris now lives alone, somewhere outside the city. Stephanie then shows her a photo of Aris and Paul, the same faces she has been seeing in her dreams. Stephanie finally reached the secluded forest house where her grandmother Aris was living. At the gate, she introduced herself. Aris opened the gate and Stephanie was overjoyed to see her. Aris asked about her daughter, Stephanie's mother, Stephanie explained that their mum had left them when they were very young and they hadn't seen her in years. Hearing this, Aris was heartbroken. Stephanie then revealed, "I saw you and Grandpa Paul in my dreams at the Skyview restaurant where you died." Aris looked at her and said, "That wasn't just a dream, it was real." She explained that the visions Stephanie was seeing, Aris had seen them too years ago in that very restaurant. Aris shared how she had taken the coin from the evil child, went downstairs and warned everyone about the fragile glass floor. She saved many lives that day, and in doing so, cheated death. Stephanie was shocked, but death had its own way of catching up. Everyone who survived that accident, they weren't supposed to live, so death began hunting them, one by one. And then their children, who were never meant to be born, also started dying mysteriously. Even my husband Paul, he died of cancer. Then it was my turn, but I escaped and hid in this house. As long as I'm alive, you, my family, will be safe. Stephanie asked, "Then why am I seeing these visions?" Aris replied grimly, "Because death is coming for you next, but first it has to take me." Aris showed her a book, a diary that explained how death operates, how each event was connected. But Stephanie, overwhelmed, said, "This is nonsense. I'll come back in a few days." As she walked away, Aris rushed outside to give her the book and warned her, "Death is coming for you. It's the only way to survive." But at that moment, something fell from above. A tragic accident occurred, and Aris was killed on the spot. 2 days later, Aris's funeral was held. After years of separation, Stephanie's mother, Darlene, returned to say goodbye to her own mother. Howard reunited with his sister, but Stephanie and Charlie were upset and confused. Stephanie returned home and began reading the book her grandmother left behind. As she read further, she realized something shocking. All 5 Final Destination movies were based on true events. The people who died in those films were all descendants of the survivors from that same restaurant disaster. Terrified, Stephanie rushed to warn her family, but no one was answering her calls. Meanwhile, at Howard's house, the whole family had gathered for a celebration. During the party, Bobby accidentally broke a glass. A shard of that broken glass landed in a tray of ice, the same ice everyone was using for their drinks, but nobody knew which glass had the sharp piece inside. As the music played and people danced, Marty unknowingly picked up the drink with the shard, but placed it down again. Stephanie finally arrived and looked around. A toy fell from the table, knocking over Marty's drink. The glass shattered. One shard cut Howard's foot. As he stumbled backward in pain, a shovel tipped over, hitting a nearby lawnmower. The mower started and in a horrifying instant crushed Howard's face. The next day, Stephanie told everyone about the book and explained that there was only one man named J.D. who had survived those mysterious accidents. She showed all her research, how everyone who had survived the Skyview Tower tragedy alongside Aris had slowly been killed off, along with their entire families. And now, it was their family's turn. Aris had managed to cheat death for years, but now that she was gone, death had returned. Hearing all this, some people started calling Stephanie crazy. Even Julia didn't believe her. Blenda took her kids and walked away, but Darlene stood by her daughter. That night, Eric was at his tattoo shop, piercing a girl's tongue. After she left, he shut the shop and started working on a tattoo in memory of his father, Howard. Unknowingly, death had already set the stage. As Eric tattooed his arm, a loose chain fell and got caught in his nose ring. The chain was being pulled upward by a fan, and Eric was nearly lifted off the ground. As he struggled, he dropped the kerosene. Flames ignited. The shop caught fire. Eric quickly removed his nose ring and tried to escape, but fell right into the flames. It seemed he was about to die, but somehow he survived, burned, but alive. The next day, Stephanie and Charlie heard about the fire and rushed to Eric's house. But before they could reach him, Eric, injured but alive, collided with their car. They were shocked to see he had only a minor arm injury. A truck passed by just then, and Eric jokingly said, "See? I'm still standing." Later, Julia met up with her brother and hugged him. Meanwhile, Stephanie watched nervously. She had a bad feeling, especially when she saw a garbage truck nearby. Moments later, Julia went out for a walk. A ball bounced her way and she fell into a trash bin. Before she could get out, the bin was lifted and loaded into the garbage truck. Everyone rushed to stop the machine. Stephanie ran to save her, but it was too late. As the crushing mechanism activated, Stephanie could only scream. All that remained was Julia's severed hand in her arms. The next day, Stephanie was heartbroken. Marty tried to comfort her. Slowly, people started believing she might be telling the truth. Stephanie whispered, "I thought Eric would die, not Julia." Then Blender revealed the truth. "It's my fault. Eric isn't Howard's son. He's from my previous relationship." Eric was stunned. Angry and hurt, he walked away. Stephanie reopened her grandmother Arish's book and found a name, J.D., the survivor. Charlie searched online. They found the hospital. Eric joined them and together they went. On the top floor, they finally met J.D., but he wasn't a stranger. He was William, the man who appeared in every film before. He looked at them and asked, "Only Arish called me J.D. She must be gone now." Stephanie asked, "How do you know her?" William said he was at the Skyview disaster as a child. Arish had saved lives and looked straight at him. That moment changed him. Stephanie asked, "Can anyone cheat death?" William nodded. "Yes, 2 people died and came back. That broke the chain." "I've been on borrowed time ever since," William said. "But now I have cancer. My time's up. In the end, death catches us all." And with that, William walked away. Outside, Bobby and Eric stood silently, thinking. Suddenly, Eric had an idea. "You're allergic to nuts, right? If we stop your heart for just a moment and bring you back with an epinephrine shot, maybe we can break the chain." Bobby was terrified. But what choice did he have? They bought a nut-filled Cadbury bar from a vending machine, but it got stuck. They shook the machine hard. A spring fell loose. They entered a hospital room. Eric told Bobby to hide while he went to get the injector. As he slammed the door, the game began. Suddenly, the MRI machine powered on by itself. Eric returned with the injector. Bobby ate the chocolate. Within seconds, he was gasping. The MRI's magnetic field surged. Eric's piercings, his metal chair, everything was being pulled in. The chair dragged him violently. He screamed. Then, crash, dead on the spot. Bobby, barely conscious, crawled to the injector and stabbed himself. He lived. But a second later, the spring from the vending machine, now magnetized, flew across the room and pierced Bobby's skull. He dropped, dead. A little later, Stephanie, Charlie and Darlene sat downstairs. Stephanie said, "Grandma survived by staying in her house. Mum, maybe if you stay there too, death won't find you." Darlene agreed. As they drove off, something strange happened. A coin slipped from Stephanie's book and landed on the ground. An old woman picked it up and kept it. Meanwhile, they arrived at Arish's old house, but Stephanie had a bad feeling. Something outside might try to kill Darlene. "Get inside, now," she urged, but they didn't know. Gas was leaking inside. Outside, sparks from a broken pole were starting small fires. Suddenly, Stephanie's seatbelt jammed. She yelled, "Mum, go inside. If you live, I'll be okay." Darlene and Charlie ran in. Inside, Darlene smelled gas and saw fire. She grabbed Charlie and ran back out. The house exploded. The blast threw Stephanie's truck off the road and into the water. She was trapped. Charlie tried to help, but a utility pole fell toward him. He was stuck. At the last second, Darlene, burned and barely standing, shoved Charlie to safety. The pole crashed down on her. She died, saving him. Charlie turned back. Stephanie was drowning. He dove in, pulled her from the truck, but she wasn't breathing. He gave her CPR. Then, gasp, Stephanie came back to life. She had died and returned. The chain was broken. Death moved on. A week later, Stephanie and Marty were at home. Charlie came downstairs, dressed for graduation. They smiled, ready to leave. Before heading out, Stephanie pinned a flower on Charlie's suit, but the thorn pricked her finger. A drop of blood fell, and suddenly she remembered her grandmother. Across the street, the same old woman who took the coin was buying food. Suddenly, the coin slipped from her purse again. It rolled into the street, straight onto the train tracks. It landed between two rails, connecting them. The track system sparked. A malfunction. Across town, Stephanie and Charlie met Marty's friend, a doctor. He smiled. "Charlie told me everything. It's amazing you survived." Stephanie replied, "Yeah, I died and came back. Guess that makes me a little lucky." Then the doctor said something that shook them both. "You didn't actually die. If someone stops breathing for over 5 minutes, they're considered clinically dead. But you came back within 1 minute. You were just unconscious." Stephanie and Charlie froze. Death wasn't done with them. Stephanie looked around. Suddenly, everything felt dangerous. Meanwhile, the train was already moving. That same coin stuck between the rails triggered a malfunction. The train derailed, sliding off the tracks, crashing through homes, and heading straight towards Stephanie and Charlie. They ran for their lives. When the train finally stopped, they thought they were safe. But then, from behind, large wooden debris flew from the train cars and came crashing down on them both. They died instantly, and with that, death ended the entire bloodline.